So this is the office mix called weather. Before you learn about weather, you need to know about the scientists who study weather. So they are called meteorologists. They're scientists who use special tools that we're going to learn about to measure, predict, and study conditions of the weather. A couple different weather instruments. You may be familiar with some of them. You may not be familiar with others, and that's fine. Thermometer is probably the first weather instrument that we think about because that's the most common one. It measures temperature. In the old days, we used mercury in thermometers. Most thermometers these days use alcohol or they're digital, but there are a couple of different pictures of types of thermometers here. This is probably a standard thermometer that you're used to seeing. This is Galileo thermometer. I have one in my room. I'll have it up on the front table for you to take a look at. See if you can figure out how it works. And if you want to try and figure out how it works, this is the graphic you have to look at, because this kind of is a drawing, of how a Galileo thermometer works. Essentially, a thermometer works by molecules that are hot are moving around faster. And so what do when they move faster? They expand. So when they expand, the mercury or the alcohol in the thermometer rises up, comes to a higher level, like it is here on this hot thermometer, as opposed to molecules that are moving less fast, being more compact and constricted together, and that number being lower on the thermometer. Another weather instrument which is very common is a barometer. A barometer measures air pressure. It works similarly to a thermometer. This is a picture of what a kind of traditional barometer looks like, but has a vacuum. That's a space with no air in it that the mercury would go up into. I have a barometer like this in my classroom that you can take a look at as well. And this is an old-fashioned kind of barometer that just tells you if the temperature, if the pressure is rising or falling. It does not tell you what the actual air pressure is, like this barometer would or this barometer would. So when you measure other weather conditions besides just temperature and pressure, there are some other weather instruments you can use. A psychrometer measures relative humidity. That's how much moisture is in the air compared to how much moisture the air can hold. A rain gauge measures how much rain or snow has fallen. A wind vane shows which direction the wind is blowing. It points to the direction the wind is coming from. And an anemometer measures how fast the wind is blowing. So these little cups down here, this spins around this pole, and I have a small anemometer up in the front of the room you can take a look at so you can see how that works. So meteorologists use two big weather instruments to measure weather conditions. They use Doppler radar and they use satellites. Satellite is pretty much just like a big picture from the sky of the cloud cover, and what they do is they color it. So the darker colored, like this dark purple here, is a thicker cloud cover than the lighter purple, which is a thicker cloud cover than the white. And obviously you don't see this outline of the state of Texas or Louisiana when you look from a satellite down on land. That's something that they add in as well graphically so people can kind of see where the cloud cover is. Doppler radar is a little bit more sophisticated. If you guys remember the Doppler effect from our physics unit, the Doppler effect is when a sound sounds different, is perceived differently because the source of the sound is changing its position comparatively to the person who's listening to the sound. So with Doppler radar, what scientists are doing is they're sending sound waves or light waves into a storm, okay? And then they're bouncing back from the storm and coming back. And scientists can interpret the change in the frequency of those waves and determine how far away the eye or the main center part of the storm is and how heavy or thick the storm is in different places. So the last part of this weather mix is going to be clouds. Clouds are made up of millions of tiny water droplets or ice crystals that are suspended in the atmosphere. They give us clues about how the weather may change because there are many different types of clouds. There's 3 main types, and then from there, there's all these kind of subtypes of clouds. So the 3 main types of clouds are stratus clouds, cirrus clouds way up here, and cumulus clouds down here. But this picture shows you there are all these subclouds. There's stratocumulus, which sounds like it might be a combination of cumulus and stratus. There's nimbostratus, which sounds like stratus and this word nimbo, that maybe we'll figure out what that means shortly. There's cumulonimbus, which is, of course, nimbus with cumulus together, altocumulus, cirrocumulus, cirrostratus, altostratus, all different types of clouds. But if you look, each particular type of cloud occurs at a different altitude, okay? So if they're high up, 6,000 meters or more off the ground, they're all going to be cirro, okay? A form of cirrus clouds. The middle clouds, around 4,000 meters above ground, are going to be alto, okay? And then low clouds are going to be stratus or cumulus. Cumulonimbus is the one that's really different because this is the cloud that kind of traverses all different heights. It's a cloud with a vertical development. So cumulus are the puffy white clouds that usually you'll start seeing when the weather's good, but then they start piling up and they turn dark, and then they turn into cumulonimbus clouds, and those can bring a thunderstorm. And so here, this is when it's nice, and maybe I'll put a little sun here, like it's still kind of bright. But here, this is really dark and ominous, and this is going to be a big major storm. Cirrus clouds are the really high clouds that look thin or feathery, and they're really made of ice crystals, tiny, tiny ice crystals. So they're not very dense. They don't have a lot of moisture in them. And stratus clouds are those low kind of clouds that make the whole sky look gray. They're the ones that are almost like a layer upon layer of clouds. And they're the ones that will give us a steady rain or snowfall. And that is it for the weather mix.